You're listening to Season 14 of the Virtual Tailgate, a media bullcrap production covering college football in the Atlantic Coast Conference. I'm Andrew.
I'm David.
I'm Jeff.
And I'm Jared.
Be sure to join the tailgate on Facebook at Virtual Tailgate or email us at virtualtailgate@mediabullcrap.com.
All right, well, it's time for the Walking Taller, Feeling Taller Players of the Week. And speaking of walking taller, feeling taller, here with Tacova's Work Boots, we always say to make love and not war. And when I say make love, I mean you need to be making some Barry White type love. We all know making love is about confidence and feeling way better and feeling way confident than a pair of fine Tacova's Work Boots. Tacova's Work Boots will have you feeling confident for that long night of lovemaking with your significant other, pickup, or throuple if that's your style. So next time your boo asks if you want to hook up for the night, by all means say yes. Just make sure they leave the Tacovas alone. Oh wait,
Just play you off. Just play you off. Is there actually a segment in here, Jeff?
No. I thought I was just shamelessly selling some more Tacovas Work Boots. That's my style here. But speaking of feeling confident here, we talked about feeling confident in the bedroom, feeling confident on the football field this week. Andrew, you've got us leading off with a I think defensive player this week, right?
Absolutely. We've got Jonas Sanker from Virginia, who had a pretty impressive week. May not sound like it so much by the stat line, but pretty good even there. Five tackles, 2 for loss, 1 interception, 1 block field goal. What's really important to understand, though, is that he did most of those impressive things on 3 consecutive plays on his time on the field. On 3rd down, he made a tackle for loss to force a 4th down. He turned right back around and blocked the ensuing field goal, bringing his team on his offense back onto the field to drive down and score. Once he got back on the field, he immediately made an interception on the very next play. Single-handedly turned this game around for the Cavaliers and left Pitt stunned. So props to you, Jonas Sanker.
So my game ball is going to go to the kicker from Cal, or one of the 2 kickers from Cal, Ryan Cole. Booted 2 field goals, both of them career highs, 54 yarders, with the second and making a 2-score game and putting it away 46-36 over Wake Forest in Cal's first win in the ACC. And actually, that kick and that win turned Wake Forest to Woke Forest, as Cal was going for. And one side note here, I did not put this, but someone did. Bastards ran up the score and cost me on the spread. Who would that be?
I'll take credit for that. They scored a touchdown from outside 10 yards with less than a minute to go. All they had to sit on it and they would have won by 3 points.
Somebody had some action.
All they had to do was sit on, fall on your face, do whatever. Trip him, somebody.
You can blame that on my player of the week, Cal quarterback, Fernando Mendoza. He threw for 385 yards and 2 touchdowns in this game. Also ran for 51 and another score. This was en route to leading the Cal Bears to their first ever ACC victory. One of the really impressive things about his performance is he really spread the ball out. He ended up completing passes to 11 different receivers, which by my informal count is more than Florida State has thrown balls to all season long.
That seems absolutely accurate.
I was going to say, I feel like that needs to be fact checked because it actually could be true.
I think they've barely completed 11 forward passes, but that's a different subject.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's been 11 touchdowns. That's for sure.
No.
But yeah. So flipping the script here, instead of going to 11 different receivers, we're going to go to a game where, kind of in the line of what you said, David, where the Boston College Eagles quarterbacks combined to only complete 7 passes on the entire day. Ended up with a huge workload from the BC backfield. The combination of Kai Robichaud and Jordan McDonald, they combined to just run all over the Syracuse Orange defense the entire night to the tune of 43 rushes, 331 yards, 3 touchdowns. I don't know. I don't have the stats as far as like firsts or records, or couldn't find anything before the show, but nevertheless, we're talking roughly 8 yards a pop that these guys combined to rush, 331 yards in a game in which the passing game simply did not click, and in the end, carried BC to victory in what was ended up being a high scoring affair, and really for most of us a surprising victory over the Syracuse Orange, 37-31 in that in that shootout affair, but really a really impressive game by that two-headed duo in the Boston College Eagles backfield, over 300 yards combined and 3 touchdowns from them.
All right, before we go, we do want to hand out one more honorable mention to the Georgia Tech offensive line. Miami's defensive line coming in to this game had only allowed an average of 95 rushing yards per game, but that Georgia Tech O-line drove them back, blocking to allow Georgia Tech to rush for 271 yards. Not quite as impressive as just the two guys that Jeff just talked about in the BC backfield, but really impressive whenever you're doing it to Miami. And that definitely helped Georgia Tech gain the edge in their stunning upset victory over undefeated Miami.
All right. Well, now we're moving on to the power rankings, which are brought to you by this special parody service announcement for the Virtual Tailgate. And actually, this time, again, we are going to not do a parody announcement, as this is a true heartfelt message for anyone listening today. As you all know, we are recording today's podcast on Veterans Day, a day of which we honor those that served our country and for many gave their lives for us so we could do something like this silly podcast. But for many of us, after this day ends, we move on and tend to only remember these veterans when the next holiday arrives. So maybe instead of comping meals or shaking hands and saying thank you, do something more impactful for our veterans, like listening to their stories or helping them complete tasks and errands. And not just once, but make it a continuous routine. Because for many of these veterans, it's nice to have a reliable source to lean on. Remember, these veterans gave their lives to protect you. When these veterans need it, remember that it's our turn to step up and do the same for them. The more you know. All right, and now we're going to do the top 5 of the power rankings. At number 5, we have the Duke Blue Devils moving up 2 spots and joining the top 5 with their 7-3 record and their 3-3 conference record after their 29-19 win over NC State. At number 4, on a bye week, we have the Louisville Cardinals. And because you're on a bye week, you know what that means in our podcast. You drop a spot.
Gatorade, man. Enjoy your day.
Yes, that's right. That too, Coach. Thank you so much. 6-3, 4-2 in the conference. They get the honorary FU award. Well done, Cardinals, for doing nothing. And we have a tie at 2. We have 2 teams tied at 2 in our power rankings. Miami dropping a spot after that upset loss to Georgia Tech, 28-23. The Canes are 9-1 with their first loss in the conference this year, with 5 wins as well. At number 2 as well is the Clemson Tigers, jumping up 2 spots in the power rankings to be tied at 2nd with Miami. The Tigers are 7-2, 6-1 in the conference after their 24-14 win over the Hokies at Blacksburg. And at number 1, also on a bye, but we didn't punish them for it. No. They are 8-1, 5-0 in the conference, are the SMU Mustangs. And Mac, you got anything to say?
Some Gatorade, man. Enjoy your day.
Yeah, they sure did. Well, yeah. And at the bottom 3, we have no change in anything. 15, 16, 17, Wake Forest, Stanford. Florida State is still the basement dweller. Wake Forest lost to Cal 46-36 on Friday night at home. And at 17, Florida State, they got crushed by Notre Dame 52-3 up at South Bend. What do we say here? Rock? No.
Rock says they kept you at the bottom of the barrel because you absolutely suck.
I mean, I was really looking for the opposite of whatever this sound is. Actually, I think it's this one. Yes.
Oh, guys. Well, it is almost time to talk about our upcoming game of the week. But first, we're excited to announce the very first official Virtual Tailgate cross-country road trip. We'll be starting just outside Chicago on the aptly named Walter Payton Memorial Highway. From there, we'll head west toward the Field of Dreams in Iowa. Then it's on to the cornfields of Nebraska. And finally, we'll finish practically in Andrew's backyard, digging through the snow of the Rocky Mountain National Park. Along the way, we'll pass through the hometowns of Louisville wide receiver Jaden Thompson, Stanford safety Charlie Eckhart, SMU offensive lineman Paris Patterson Jr., and Miami D lineman Marquise Lightfoot. Every inch of this great American virtual tailgate journey will take place on U.S. Highway 34.
Ole!
But before we take off on this epic journey, we do have some football. This week's game of the week is up in Pittsburgh, where the Clemson Tigers come to town. These are two teams that badly need a victory here. Pitt is reeling after losing 2 in a row. Clemson kind of got things back on track in Blacksburg on Saturday, but cannot afford to drop a third game this season. This is it's all on the line for both of these teams. Tigers come in as 9.5-point favorites in this one, and we are divided here on the virtual tailgate about what we're expecting to happen. Andrew and Jared both like Pitt in this one. Can you convince Jeff and I that we're wrong?
Nope.
I don't like Pitt in this one. I just like, if I'm playing out a scenario here, Clemson is still a powerhouse compared to most other teams in the ACC. But as you said, Pitt is reeling. I expect them to put up a good fight. I expect them to put up a fight that is more than the 9.5-point spread that is here. And so I think I could see this being somewhere in the neighborhood of a field goal separating them, maybe only a single touchdown separating them by the end, a hard-fought victory for the Clemson Tigers, holding out a slight hope that maybe Pitt would win, but really I think it's just like the spread is a little too much for me. And so I see Pitt holding it closer than what the line is set at right now.
My reason for picking Pitt is, quite honestly, they have had under Narduzzi as the head coach, they just seem to give Clemson trouble. Like every time they've ever played. And Pitt's coming off an awful loss to UVA. Clemson does have to come up to Pittsburgh for this game. They just had a tougher game at Virginia Tech. It was a blowout in the second half, honestly. But it's not going to be probably the easiest game for the Tigers. I say, looking at Pittsburgh, I think they're going to be a little bit upset about how they lost to UVA and apply that toward Clemson. And I think they have a good chance of actually pulling off this upset. They have done it before, and against much better Clemson teams. I don't see why they can't do it again on Saturday.
What do we know about Eli Holstein? So he got knocked out of the game against Virginia, and Pitt really struggled to do anything on offense without him. This is the second time this season he's had to leave the game early because of an injury. This time it was what looked, by all accounts, it was on a targeting play, and it kind of looked like, I mean, it was a head injury, I guess a concussion. I read that Pat Narduzzi kind of seemed to hint that he was going to be okay, but like, if he's not ready to go, that's a bad sign for Pitt.
Yeah, you pretty much went where I was going to go, David. Is Eli Holstein came in this season and at least through the first month was one of the rising stars of this ACC crop of quarterbacks. And if you look, not just last week, not just the last couple weeks, but really the last month. As they really got into the heart of conference play, his numbers have really regressed a lot during the season. Certainly not putting up the numbers that he put up earlier in the season, and I think that's a bad matchup for Pittsburgh because this is a Clemson team. Now they may not have been facing the likes of Cam Ward in the last month, but you look at what they've done to quarterbacks the last month that they've been playing, even in losses, even in the Louisville game. Passing game was almost non-existent for Louisville. I fear that this is a bad matchup for whoever's at quarterback for Pittsburgh, going up against this Clemson team that at least on the quarterback side of the house has not only has this team kind of come back together since that opening weekend kind of disaster against Georgia, but they're really stopping the passing game of teams right now, and I'm concerned that that's going to make it really hard for this Pitt team to move the ball too much. I know that their running game also is complementary, but I'm just concerned that this Clemson defense coming in as one of the top defenses in the secondary in the ACC is going to just create too many problems, and that's going to lead to some short fields and some turnovers. Certainly 9.5 feels like a big number. If Pitt had come out with a stronger game against UVA, certainly would have given me a lot more pause on that 9.5. But it feels a little bit. I don't want to say the wheels are coming off quite yet. We've seen Narduzzi right the ship before in situations like this, but it certainly feels like a season that at one time we were talking, potentially college football playoff if they won the right games down the road, and kept the momentum going. Now looks like a team that's kind of just hoping to hold on for a top tier ACC bowl by the time all things are said and done.
Yeah, I think that's kind of where I am on this one too, Jeff. This is a Clemson team that really, on the offensive side of the ball in particular, had really been rolling. I mean, Cade Klubnik this year, 24 touchdowns on only 4 interceptions, getting the job done. Clemson has demonstrated the ability to win big this season. Other than the 2 losses, they've won every game. I think by double digits. I mean, they really are. When they're on, they're really on. And we've seen the last couple of weeks from Pitt that the wheels do seem to be coming off. There's some real questions here. I mean, they were throttled by a good SMU team. I don't think it's crazy to think that Clemson could do something like that to them. And I think it is more likely that Clemson wins this game by 10 or more than it is that Pitt would pull the upset. Anything else to say about this one?
It's a game. That's being played on Saturday.
I don't think so. So we're a little light on games this week. So let's go back to some of our old school namesake here, guys.
And that's all media bull crap.
Let's do a little media bull crap about bowl eligibility. We've got
Hold on. Andrew?
Uh-huh.
Wrong name. It's not bowl eligibility.
What do you want it to be?
It's Bowel eligibility. Let's get it right.
Shit. Yeah, that's right.
Oh, geez. You guys. All right. So we've still got a good portion of the conference that is sitting in the limbo in between knowing that they're going to a postseason bowl game and knowing that they're definitely out. We've got a fair number of teams already at 6+ wins. We've got Stanford and Florida State sitting at 7+ losses. And sitting here in the mushy middle, we have the following teams: the Virginia Cavaliers, the Virginia Tech Hokies, the Boston College Eagles, North Carolina Tar Heels, NC State Wolfpack, and the Cal Golden Bears all sit with 5 wins on the season. And then we've got Wake Forest Demon Deacons with 4 wins on the season. So we're just going to go around the horn and see if anybody's got any bold or not so bold predictions on where some of these teams are going to land in terms of how they're going to go bowling this season. I'm going to start it off with the ridiculously, certainly almost terribly wrong hot take that Virginia is going to get into bowl eligibility before Thanksgiving. I know that that's absurd. That's complete hopium on my part that they're going to do something against some of their hardest competition that they have. But I have to say that because I know for a fact that they're going to lose to the Hokies in the rivalry game, which is probably a good chance to throw directly to David, who will talk about his first prediction here.
One thing I'll say for sure is that the Hokies are 100% bowling. Although I will say I'm not sure. I actually don't think that Virginia Tech's going to have to wait until after Thanksgiving. I think they win on the road at Duke in 2 weeks. And They get to 6 wins there. This is a Hokie team that even against Clemson, so the Hokies have been in every game. They in the final minutes of every game this season until that loss against Clemson, and even on Saturday against Clemson, even when this weird banged up kind of triage quarterback rotation they had going on, they still managed to only lose the game by 10 points. I think they're better than Duke is. I think you see that, and they get to bowl eligibility, and then all bets are off on Thanksgiving weekend at Lane Stadium. But regardless, between those two games, there is no chance that the Hokies don't win one of them.
And I disagree because I think Virginia Tech loses out. I think this team has quit. I think this team is giving up. I think the message is getting stale from the coach. I just think at this point, there's a lot of questions of why the hell this team cannot play 4 consecutive quarters. It's just getting old and repetitive. Even if Virginia Tech gets a 3-score lead, it's not safe because they know they have shown they can crap themselves and give it up. I just am tired of it. The fans are tired of it. The players are tired of it. And I think at this point, just as a mental drain where anytime they get up and then they start letting the team crawl back in, they're going to go, here we go. We're going to lose the game again. We're going to find a way to lose. And I think they will.
The team that's quit to come up only 10 points short of Clemson.
It was 24-7 with less than 2 minutes to go in that game. That game was over. They got a meaningless touchdown in the end. Big whoop. The offense is not existent right now.
I hear you, David. It was 24-0 on if you just used offense with less than a minute to go.
I mean, this offense is just trash right now. It is not good. And a team that had all these expectations,
but they were a questionable call away from beating Miami, Jared.
There have been questionable calls from the coaching too, from being 7-0 at one point. At the end of the day, your record is what you are, and at this point, they're not a good team. They're not going to make a bowl.
Jared, I just hope my prediction hasn't jinxed them.
David, the only thing you can jinx is pretty much my hope for living on this earth.
Wow.
Jared goes dark Jared so quickly in this.
It's a good thing you're not a UVA fan, Jared, because you would be in despondent despair all the time.
I like the fact that Jared is making a prediction for something to happen that has not happened in over 25 years. That has not happened since George Welsh was the coach of the Virginia Cavaliers, that the Cavaliers will win on the road in Blacksburg. Like, that's pretty
there's
amazing.
A first time for everything.
I guess.
No, that's not true. There are a lot of things that are never going to happen.
All right. Well, we've we've gone around the horn here, and Jeff, you haven't gotten to chime in yet, so I'll let you take either of your picks here and walk us through it.
All right, so I'll start with one. Since somebody else picked it up, we've talked a lot this season in bits and pieces, kind of about the surprise that the Cal Golden Bears have been. Our newfound brethren on the West Coast, not necessarily getting the same love that we've typically given our East Coast, legacy ACC teams, but they've had a good season. 5 wins on the season. They could easily already be bowl eligible on the season right now, but for some questionable kicking abilities from their place kicker has cost them probably, you could probably argue 2 if not 3 games in their win column this season. Nevertheless, they are at 5 wins, need 6 to get bowl eligible. They've racked it up, those wins off of, as we joke about, the WL, the NC State method of some favorable out of conference scheduling that helps them to fluff up that to get to those 4 wins or to get to those wins out of conference before they hit the conference schedule. They're now at 5 now. Got 3 remaining games. Not the easiest schedule in the world, but I think that Cal certainly, it would be a disappointment if they don't get to bowl eligibility by that November 23rd game against Stanford. That should be a win for them. Two of the legacy Pac-12 teams playing each other. We've talked about Stanford's struggles. I don't think it's outside the realm of possibility that they do it. this week against Syracuse, although I have a little more hesitancy, but I think they've got 2 decent shots at getting that win number 6 and getting to bowl eligibility on the season for a season that's been pretty good, I think, for the Cal Bears, given what the expectations were coming in.
Well, speaking of that NC State strategy, David, I see you've got something to say about NC State themselves.
Yeah, the Wolfpack unfortunately are not going bowling this year. They're sitting at 5-5 right now. They have finished their home schedule. They're on the road the last 2 weekends of the season, going to Georgia Tech and then to Chapel Hill. They're not going to win at Georgia Tech, so they're going to have to win that rivalry game against the Tar Heels, and I just don't see it happening. I think NC State they've been scuffling all year. If you look at the games they've won, they really have not beaten a good team on the season. I don't think that starts now. NC State finishes season 5-7. And then Dave Dorn, who seemed to have worked his way off that perpetual hot seat over the last couple of years, is right back on it entering the 2025 campaign.
All right. Well, circling back to me, I think the easiest kind of laziest pick of all of them is probably that North Carolina is going to go bowling. Looking at their schedule to wrap up here, they've got Wake Forest, Boston College, and NC State. You just heard David talk about NC State probably losing out on their own bowl bid finally in that game against the Heels. It's Wake Forest is not a good team. Boston College is on the outs. I feel like this is pretty easy for NC State or for UNC, despite their troubles in the middle of the season here, to pick up maybe not only one but a couple of good victories here before the season ends out. And as I said, one of those may well come against Boston College, which, Jeff, that rounds us out with your last pick. Talk to us about.
Wait a minute. Can I ask you a question about North Carolina? What if? I mean, the Tar Heels have a very good chance of winning out here, right?
Yeah.
If they do, they'll finish 8-4 in a season where Mac Brown offered to quit during the first month of the year. Would that be? I mean, that would be a pretty incredible coaching job if he manages to pull this off, right?
I mean, maybe. I look at so that loss to JMU is inexcusable. That was a ridiculous game. You should not.
It was bad. It was bad. That's when he threatened to quit.
Yeah. But losing to now, with the added benefit of hindsight, losing to Duke, Pitt, and Georgia Tech does not seem that bad overall. And then beating a Virginia team that could beat Pitt is pretty good. Beating Florida State is expected. And I think beating all 3 of these teams at the end of the season is expected. And I don't know that maybe it's a good coaching job, or maybe this was always an 8-win team, and it just so happens that they got their 4 losses in the middle. So
I think you give Mac the 10-year extension if they do it.
Oh my gosh. All right. We're just going crazy here tonight, guys.
Speaking of going crazy, so I originally wrote my line for Boston College and bowl eligibility, and then you guys kind of brought up sort of the sort of cryptic way it was phrased, and the more we talk through this and the more we've done the show, I actually feel even less confident, and that maybe Boston College's bowl prospects may actually be the toughest out of all of these teams to try to forecast. So my phrase for Boston College was that they will be home for Christmas. It was originally a dig to say that they weren't going bowling. Then it turned into, well, they could go bowling, but they're clearly going to get one of those December 19th, 20, 21st bowls, and they'll still be home for Christmas. So I can't really lose by saying that they'll be home for Christmas. But if we are to go back to the bowl eligibility discussion, we've got a BC team coming in, 3 games left on the season. They need to find 1 victory out of that. I think we can all safely assume that SMU win, not happening. That is probably the most clear loss for this Boston College team. Now, Andrew, you just convinced me that the next game that they have against North Carolina, that North Carolina is a lot better than I was giving them credit for. I was feeling pretty nervous about this North Carolina game because they've shown the ability to step up at times during the season, lay eggs as well. Same thing as North Carolina. Maybe you convince me that this North Carolina team is a little bit stronger. I feel better about that. And then they finish the season at home against, as I just basically lambasted them just a couple of minutes ago, the Pitt Panthers, a struggling Pitt Panther team, a team that has not looked good at all the last 2 weeks. Eli Holstein struggling at the quarterback position. What will their offense even look like by the time they get there? That may actually turn into a win or go home game for the Boston College Eagles as far as bowl eligibility. And even with that, with a Pitt team that has been struggling, I can't feel confident that Boston College does not find a way to pull that game out, given their ability to rise up, Pitt's ability to play down their competition and struggle. And now I talk myself into, are there 3 straight losses on that schedule, which is kind of what I had in mind to begin with. I still think yes, maybe, possibly. That's kind of where I'm at. I mean, I think if you had to make me pick something, I think they lose out. But guys, if you guys want to weigh in on this one, I think this is an interesting one. The more we talked about it, the more it got interesting to me. I would open it up. What do you guys think about this Boston College team? Because I honestly, right now, am as 50-50 on the fence as I can about whether they lose out or find one win in those last couple to squeak out into bowl eligibility.
I think it all depends on what we end up finding out about Pitt's quarterback. Like if they don't get Holstein back and they don't find the next man up, that game could be almost a gimme at the end of the season. But yeah, you really do have me wondering. And I think I guess I shouldn't be though, because Boston College really isn't that good. They just beat Florida State and confused us all because we were still not certain that what was going on with Florida State at that point. But they haven't beat anybody good. So I don't know.
They beat Syracuse on Saturday. That's I guess their best win, right?
I mean, they beat Syracuse and they had
by
Louisville
my statement,
dead to
David.
rights. They had Louisville deed to rights until they shit themselves.
And
sorry, we just went explicit on that, okay? And that it's never happened before, but
jeez.
I mean, I'm not saying that BC is good, but they're improved, I think.
Yeah. I mean, it's real. Like I said, it was a great call out for the end of this segment here, Jeff. That's a really hard wait and see, for sure. Jared, you already sleep, bud? Anything on this?
Oh yeah.
oh yeah.
All right. Let's bounce on down to the quickfire bets before we.
Jared loves him some Boston College. I know that.
Before we get out of here,
I think Boston College loves himself some Boston College. I mean,
well, looks like nobody picked Boston College in any of our quickfire bets here. Jeff, why don't you tell us what yours was?
Yeah, so my pick this week, we talked about it a little bit. I talked about it a little bit in the bowl eligibilities. I've got Syracuse +7 in their matchup against Cal. This is a Cal team that Syracuse is going to have to go out to Cal. Cal's playing good. They're playing teams close for the most part. That 7 points seems like a big number for a Syracuse team that I think is pretty good and pretty comparable to Cal.
My quick bet, North Carolina -10. They have a pretty much a very winnable game against a very Wake Forest team. I think this is about as easy as it gets.
I'm going Louisville -20 over Stanford. That's a huge line, I know, especially on the road like this. But I just think Louisville has shown the ability to win big. Stanford's shown the ability to lose big. I think we see more of the same this weekend.
I love that line.
Yeah,
Stanford showing the ability to lose big.
Yeah. Well, and I'm going to close it out with the if you're willing to part with your money and make a silly bet, take Virginia on the money line. It's +1,000. There's no way they're going to win in South Bend, but hey, maybe. And then you get to, be up on all your friends. Have a little bit of walking around money.
From your lips to God's ears.
Dream with me. And that's it for the Virtual Tailgate. You can send your questions or comments to virtualtailgate@mediabullcrap.com.
And always remember these 3 rules. Never listen to Andrew's quickfire bets.
Never play cards with a guy who has the same first name as the city.
And never get involved with a woman with a tattoo of a dagger on her body.
Stick to that, and everything else is cream cheese.
That's ball game.